Bonjour. Of course, my Mexican hog nose doesn't like that. So this video is going to be a little bit of an interesting mix of things, kind of. When this is uploaded, this should be uploaded tomorrow, which means I will be at the Tucson Reptile Expo. I'm intending for this to upload at noon, so I'm more than likely not going to be there anymore, or I'm just going to be leaving. So I might film a video about my thoughts and any video footage I may get while I'm there, depending on how big the show is. Yeah, it's just, this is more so just talking about the update in my my care philosophy and what I want to do for my pets, my hobby. Because I still see crypto and cryptosporidium as my biggest failure. It has affected me quite a bit, and I've decided that after that has happened, that what I have left for my pets, I'm going to give as much as I can to them. So, like I mentioned in the blood python video, that setup that she was in, not ideal. And I am well aware. And to those of you watching who saw the setup, I'm hoping that just because it was in a video does not make you all think that that is a good setup for you to mimic. I am now aware that the bins I have my hognoses in are not good, not large enough. I thought they were for a while, but these bins are the ones I start out with them as small, itty-bitty little worms. So the sizes they are now, that's just not what they should be in. They should have space. They should have more freedom than they have now. So that's why I'm kind of talking about this, because a lot of my older content isn't going to really reflect this change in ideals, because this is more of a recent thing, especially after crypto, after having a long heart-to-heart conversation with my friend Ray, who I mentioned in the previous video, looking at a lot of Tom Crutchfield's posts on Facebook, a lot of his content on YouTube, seeing the strides that Brian Barczyk has made and his care changes, and seeing how overall the hobby is kind of progressing in a much beneficial way for the animal. Now granted, I'm not going to sit here and say racks are bad. Racks are not bad, and I understand they have their purpose. They truly do. I just am stepping away from the idea of having my pets to breed them, because I kind of realized that for a little bit I started getting very fixated, and I just realized the camera angle is really cutting off my head. And I have like a little spooky glare going on. It's like, yeah, I know it's October, but I don't need to look all like that. But yeah, sorry, my drink is like right here in your intestines or wherever that may be for you viewers. Oh. A water bottle. I'll throw that away after this. But, I kind of just realized, I'm sorry, I gotta take a drink here real quick, my throat started hurting. But it just, well, after seeing this amount of progress that's been going on, I feel like I should evolve too. And I understand that where racks fit in this community. I'm not going to vilify racks. I'm not going to vilify the people who keep their animals in racks. Because it's proven that racks work. That's why I kind of am in the middle on all this, because breeders can't really have facilities large enough for what keepers are demanding the standards be risen to, and I understand that from an economic standpoint and from a spatial standpoint. It's not feasible for breeders who breed hundreds of snakes a season to be able to have such facilities. And I'm not going to go out and say that, well, because they don't provide the setup that I like, that means they're wrong, because that's just not true. There are always multiple ways for things to exist. I mean, this is going to be a funny analogy. Look at hognoses, for example. The western hognose spreads all the way to here in Arizona, and it branches all the way to Texas, and then goes all the way south is El Paso, all the way up north into Canada. Such a large and spacious range, right? Well, the conditions along that entire environment are very different. Me down here, well, if you're counting subspecies, I guess, but there might be hognoses up in the northeast corner of Arizona, but that hasn't been confirmed yet, so. But, regardless, you know what? Texas is a good example. El Paso. So, you can find western hognoses in El Paso, as I've learned from a couple of Instagram friends, and that environment is significantly different than around Billings, Montana, where you can also find western hognoses. And I know because I've been to both. So, there isn't just one way of doing things. Now, for species that are very, very niche and have very, very difficult care, like, what are they called? I can imagine them right now. And I saw one at an expo, and I remembered it dying at the expo. File snake? That doesn't seem right. Dragon snake? I'll put in the description what the snake was. Those are very niche, and very, very few collectors have actually been able to keep them alive. So, things like that, to me, not debatable. That has its set care because it is such a niche animal. But more generalistic animals that have a slew of different host environments that they reside in, they don't just have a singular care method. And that's another thing, is that we as humans tend to view things as right and wrong. It is just something that we tend to do. And the problem is with that mindset, reptile keeping becomes a very hostile environment. I've watched this community get very, very toxic, especially in the recent years, over very many a controversy. In fact, I wanted to throw my match into the flame, so to speak, for a couple of different ones, and opted out not to, because I, first of all, thought it was a waste of my time. I wasn't really sure I'd contribute anything to the conversation, and to me, I also just knew my message wasn't really going to get heard, realistically, so there's no point. But this community, it was such a joy for me to be a part of for so long, and I just don't... There are always going to be different ways to care for things, and just because mine's evolving doesn't mean that my previous methods are wrong. I guess I should say. They just aren't to the standard that I want to keep myself to. And standards, I think, should be different depending on your level of care. Are you a keeper? Are you a collector? Are you a breeder? Are you a little bit of each? I mean, I strove to be in the center of that triangle, but crypto was a prime example of why I shouldn't. if I didn't have so many snakes in such a small area, which is my room, and so close to each other, and had much better sanitation protocols, it wouldn't have spread like wildfire. I wouldn't still have it in my collection. And just thinking about things like this and mulling it over for so long, I've decided that I'm going to upgrade all remaining snakes I have left to vision cages. That's going to be my first step in the right direction, because they need more space. And I also just like how vision cages look. They're stackable, they're pretty light, really hard to escape from, except if you're small and rubbery, which I will talk about that at some point. But please don't hate on other people based on their care, especially if they're beginners. We should be building up the hobby, not tearing it down. People are going to make mistakes. That's a given, especially when keeping animals, and with the internet, really, you expect everyone to get everything right. You can ask one person if something's right and they'll say no, and you ask another person, they'll say it is. You can even have people say, well, parts of it's right, but this part isn't. And granted, there are things that are that can be very, very wrong about care. Don't get me wrong, there are things that can be done poorly and wrong and inconsiderate to the animal, but methods that have been proven to work, I would not consider wrong just because you don't like them. I mean, after all, I was so stuck in my ways about bins and racks that I could see the other side of the fence. I really could, but I was still peering from my side. And now I'm standing on the fence looking at both. And it shouldn't be such a gray area in my opinion. I understand where everything should lie. But from my point of view. And not everyone's going to have the same point of view as me. That's a given. I'm not expecting anyone to. I'm also not doing this to convince anyone in my audience to have the same view as me. That you must upgrade your cages and that everything you're doing is wrong. That's not true. Just seek to improve. That is what I'm trying to get at. And that is kind of the core message of this video, is to be a keeper is to never get stagnant in your care. Always experiment, try new things. Note what works, repeat it. Note what doesn't work, avoid it, and let others know. Share your successes and your failures. Make sure that we can find a way to generally define what is good care, and in different setups and in different conditions. Because temperature gradients in care is going to be very different from state to state to state, even from country to country, because what's going on outside still affects what's going on in your house and what's going on in your enclosures. Barometric pressure changes still occur, whether you want them to or not. So you just need to be understanding, I guess is the best way I'm trying to put it, is just don't discourage each other. Point something out if it's wrong, but in a form of constructive criticism. Don't go calling people fools or idiots, buffoons, goons, morons. There's no point. Because then that person's just going to get more hostile and more dug into their way. Now granted, there are, like I said, wrong ways to care for things. And that's when we need to educate people the most. But don't assume that just because someone's doing something different from you, that it's wrong. And also don't assume that just because someone's doing something different from you, that you're wrong. That is something I've worked on personally, is the latter. Because I've lost a lot of my confidence after I lost so much. So I've opened my eyes to alternative options of care. And I just want the rest of you out there to do the same. And also, just have fun with the hobby. I mean, don't get so far up your own ass. I'm sorry for the swear, but I mean, come on, don't get so far up there that you're blind to options. You may find something ends up working better for your animal. There are always unique circumstances that deviate from what you believe is correct. There's always going to be. So, keep what I've said in mind. This has been my sort of philosophy on care now, is continue to grow. Continue to grow and don't shut off ideas. After all, I've got some crazy, kooky ideas cooking right now, and I'm hoping to be able to get the results out to everybody watching. So, of course, I will update you all on what that is, when it becomes relevant, and when I either have no findings or some findings. But before it hits 16 minutes, I will let you all continue on with your day. And for those of you who have made it to the end, I really appreciate that you listened. And I hope that you all had a wonderful day, and if you went to any recent reptile expos, let me know how it went. I, of course, always want to know how the community's doing. And on that note, have a wonderful day, everyone.